Vijay, you
Yes,
introduce.
Mr. Balram. Sorry?
You introduce and welcome everybody on
Yes.
both.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Balram. Thank you. We'll start 6 o'clock now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed my proud privilege to welcome each one of you this evening talk, which is being organized by Madras Management Association. In association with Ponds Veterans, we termed it as a fragrance of business. We want to give fragrance of business in different forms, and one such form is this evening what you're going to listen. Two outstanding leaders. This evening, the event this evening is fast passion was a sustainable passion, insights from consumers and industry. What really impressed me, the picture which Mr. Venky Nagan shared with me, which is there on your screen, you can see what clearly is indicate what it says is we all can read them: reduce, reuse, recycle, and repeat. And it really very clearly defines what is going to be there in store for you in this evening. And I've seen the trailer. I know what Waki picture Waki, but I know what is going to be there in store. We got three outstanding panelists and who are going to be sharing with you this evening. Before that, I also want to tell you that if you have any questions, as usual, please send it across by SMS, the number which is flashed on your screen. And I warmly welcome all the viewers watching this program on our YouTube, various social media portals, including Facebook, our own website, webcasting, and we also have a voice of MMA through MMA radio. A lot of people listen to this program through audio. So please do share your question. I'll pass it on to the distinguished speakers and the special invitees. They'll be more than happy to address your concern. And also want to share with you on this occasion, we brought out a digital magazine. We also bring out all the talks, what has happened, besides other great, interesting topics, which we bring it out in the form of a digital magazine. If you are interested, please do log into my website and put your interest there. So you'll continue to get the digital magazine month after month, so you can inspire yourself and enrich yourself. And coming to today's topic, we have some outstanding speakers I mentioned with you. We have the speaker for this day is Mr. Venky Nagan. Venky Nagan is a group CEO of Asmara International Hong Kong, and Venky Nagan is not new to each one of you. We have an inspiring talk on China, and which is the talk of the town. And we also, the cover story of our digital magazine this month is what Venky Nagan spoke about China. And very warm welcome to Venky, and he's from BITS Pilani, and he's also from MBA from Calcutta, but is a master in the field of textiles. You are going to listen to him short while from now. We have other distinguished panelists this evening who will be joined us is Sarbajit Ghose. He is the Executive Director of Asia of CIEL Textiles Limited, and he is from IIM Ahmedabad and done his mechanical engineering. And Sarbajit Ghose is also been a great supporter of MMA. We run a 24-week masterclass course in where he's one of the most sought-after instructor, sharing insights on how an operational excellence is going to be enhancing your manufacturing excellence. We have another young leader who is an outstanding in the field is again Nitin Gupta, Chief Operation Officer, Design, Innovation and Business Development, Aravind Limited. And you all know Aravind means quality, Aravind means innovation, Aravind means what all needs it. And we are indeed privileged to have Mr. Nitin with us, and he is from NIFT graduate designer. And all the detailed profile of all the speakers have already been shared with you along with the invitation card. It's also there in the website, so you can reach them and you can see them, read them in full what they're. And to chair this session, we have Mr. Balraman, who is the past president of Madras Management Association for 2 terms, and is also former managing director of Ponds Limited, and he was also former Unilever executive director. And he is the one person who has been mentoring us, guiding us, cajoling us, at times even pushing us to bring the best out of us. And today we are here this evening to present you some great, outstanding programs of different subjects. I think the entire credit goes to Mr. Balraman. We are all only executing and following him. Thank you, Mr. Balraman, for your continued support and always giving us new ideas and new innovative things so that we live up to really our objective of Madras Management Association to share with them, because it's our duty to bring out what's happening today in the society and share with them by bringing out outstanding speakers. Over to you, Mr. Balraman, to introduce the theme and also to introduce a brief on the subject. Mr. Balram.
Thank you, Vijay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. what is going to be discussed here today is a globally very high priority subject. While everyone in the globe is conscious of the need to improve their economies, the gross national products of their countries, and industrialize and increase employment, what is a byproduct, a very unavoidable byproduct, is pollution. There are a number of byproducts for every industry. For example, if you take copper, which India needs, we do need to smelt copper from the ore. But in the process, you create a lot of toxic byproducts, some metal waste necessarily, and also a lot of acid effluent. And see, you can understand that unless we find useful alternatives for these will end up harming the environment, harming human health, and harming animal health, all of which will spoil our living conditions. And that is not necessarily the right thing, not necessarily a good thing to do. I appreciate these three youngsters, Venky Nagan, Nitin Gupta, and Sarbajit Ghose, bright, very well educated, and highly knowledgeable about this subject, and very socially conscious. I applaud their social consciousness. I applaud their serious interest in the direction the globe is inevitably taking. For various reasons, political and otherwise, the green movement, the Paris Accord, has not gone on as well as it should have. It is up to each and every one of us to keep pushing it, to contribute our best to this, and we need to do it like yesterday. There is no time to waste, ladies and gentlemen. And may I invite Venky and his two able colleagues to illuminate us on this subject.
Thank you, Mr. Raman. Good evening, everybody. I'm starting with this advertisement of the year 2011, where Patagonia, an American brand, said, "Don't buy this jacket." This was their path-breaking advertisement. And if you really think about what they were trying to communicate and why, they were trying to get across a message that please buy only what you really need. And they were trying to share their brand's values, and they were trying to impact consumer behavior. I try to define and explain a little bit about fashion. Why does fashion exist? It's because we like to celebrate our personalities. We want to display creativity. We want to showcase materials, colors, silhouettes. We want to blend art and science. And this domain for my talk covers clothing, footwear, accessories, and beauty products. So we come on to what is really fast fashion. Fast fashion, I'm also a responsible member of the fraternity. We've been involved in fashion and therefore also supplying to a number of brands which are also falling under fast fashion. And we think that fast fashion is something which has come up due to retailer and brand push. The consumers on the one hand feel good when they when they buy something. That is the retail therapy part of it. They also feel that even though a product may be mass, but it gives me some exclusivity, and that is called the mass exclusivity side of it. But fast fashion has inherently weak forecasting systems, and therefore there's a overproduction of apparel, footwear, and all of those accessories, which has a huge carbon footprints. And with the advent of e-com is also nudging the customers by telling what the others are buying and what the trends are and what is which color is selling well, and trying to actually promote this same fast fashion. So all in all, there is an incessant overconsumption of materials. We as humans are using resources of 1.5 planets on our one and only planet. Apparel and fashion with footwear is the second most wasteful and polluting industry in the world after oil. And in several areas and regions of the world, we could be exploiting workers. There could be child labor in Uzbekistan cotton or forced labor in Xinjiang in China. So I play you a short video about one of the fast fashion brands which is listed here called Urban Outfitters.
Lucy in the sky, diamonds in my eyes, Santana in my blood. I don't think I had enough kaleidoscope vision. I feel like John Lennon, take me back to 1960. Man, I'm feeling so trippy.
Lucy in the sky, diamonds in my eyes, Santana in my blood. I don't think I had enough.
So fashion, is, as we see from that ad, was about color, about attitude, about personality. But now we come down to some product information. Look at that man walking through a mountain of waste. One single cotton t-shirt uses 2,600 liters of water. It uses 150 grams of pesticides and herbicides. And it results in at least 3 kilos of carbon dioxide emission. So this is just one t-shirt. And we then look at jackets and coats and other footwear and products. All in all, fast fashion business consumes way too much water. It pollutes water. It consumes way too much chemicals, and a lot of those chemicals are harmful. Polyester and nylon shed microfibers which get into humans and animals. The industry also generates a lot of greenhouse gases. It causes soil degradation. It causes rainforest degradation. And the factory conditions in several parts of the world are not the best. So all in all, we have kind of created a mess. And we are trying to discuss today how and why should we come out of it. The impact, as we see, are a lot of garments dumped to the landfills, while the customer still says, I have nothing to wear. Fast fashion, by nature, there is no clear demand forecasting method, and it's an opportunistic buying. It's causing environmental pollution. It is quite trend-based, and we try to knock down a trending fashion or a bestseller style into a compromised quality. We try to bring the whole concept is about newness. New merchandise every week leads to unconscious or impulse purchasing. Anything out of fashion goes to the landfill, and there's hardly any transparency about the supply chain. Sustainable fashion, on the other hand, tries to address and give solutions and alternatives. It is on demand, it's custom made, it's green and clean factories, try to give durable, high quality and timeless design, try to be fair and ethical to the workers, try to use concepts of design, of repair, redesign, upcycle, try to rent, lease or swap, try to give the garments a second life as in second hand and vintage, and try to have transparency in the system. Mr. Baraman was always asking, sustainable fashion sounds so complex. I try to put it into a most simple form, that if we try to balance environmental, economic, and social factors, sustainability is that sweet spot right in the middle. When it's environmentally and socially good, it is livable. When environmentally and economically good, it's viable. Social and economic good is fair. And sustainable is where we are trying to reach It is a journey, and it's going to take all the stakeholders to get together to reach there. Sustainable, therefore, is something which is long-term by definition, for life and not for landfill. Circularity is one of the big concepts. Previously, we used to buy, use, dispose. But before disposing, anything which you can do to turn it back, that is why the concept of circularity comes. We look at an ad from H&M.
Bring it on. The torn stocking, the stained t-shirt, the discolored panties, the lonely sock, the washed out dress, the thing that you never wore, this and that, the thing with the color that wasn't your color. Bring it on. The ruined sheet, the old, the forgotten, the jeans that don't fit anymore. Bring your rags and we will deal with them. Yes, let's take it on, our mutual bad conscience. Let's load it, drop it, toss it, sort it, let's squeeze it, stack it, send it off to be worn by someone else like her or him. Suck the metals out of it, rip it, grind it, tear it into smaller pieces. Let's shred it into fibers and stitch it into something new. Let's turn your unwearables into cloths or stuff them into car seats. Let's cut your jeans into pieces and make new jeans out of them. Let's collect the very dust from your leftovers and press it into cardboard. Just bring it. The useless, the misfit, the redundant. We'll make sure it gets what it deserves. The only thing we will not do is waste it.
So we see that circularity uses a number of words which start with RE. We're talking about when we want to buy something, can we refuse? Can we reduce? After we buy, can we reuse? Can we repair, refurbish, remake, repurpose, recycle, recover? In that film by H&M, you saw a lot of denim products. Denim is so fashionable and it has actually an endless life, but people still get bored with denim and they keep buying denim. And all of those products, which is using a lot of indigo dyes, some of those harmful. So denim itself is an area where we are spending a lot of effort in applying sustainability. We are using denim as a process, both in fabric manufacturing and in garment washing, uses 1,000 billion liters of water every year. There are now technologies like e-flow technology to reduce and almost use very little water to wash and still get the same impact on that denim garment. And we're also using laser-based machines to get the dry processes and avoid using sand blasting, which the particles get into the nostrils of the operator. So we're trying to do clean operations for denim and therefore helping the planet. Recycled cotton, we see a film from Patagonia.
If you truly want to change the world, you have to speak a language that everybody understands. Everybody understands t-shirts. The manufacturing process for apparel generates a tremendous amount of waste. You just have a lot of unused pieces of fabric, and many times that's just thrown away. I mean, it's perfectly good cotton. It's as good as the same fabric that is used in the t-shirt. You know, we're thinking about it all wrong. We can change the way that we think about an industry. We can change the way that we approach our waste streams. We can change the way that we approach our raw material inputs. You know, we've operated under a set of assumptions for a really long time, and I think now's the time that we can challenge those assumptions in a real tangible way. So on the responsibility, we're actually gathering those up, sorting them by color, using a process that tears them down and reforms them back into a fiber, any of the water that's associated with that. Additionally, we have the ability to forego the dyeing process, using a process that's blending scraps and it's blending different colors.
And then when you add all those up at the end, the combination of the recycled cotton and the recycled polyester reduces the water impact by 96%. And the fact that recycled cotton doesn't require growth, land use, synthetic fertilizers, which reduces the carbon impact of that shirt by 45%, which is super rad.
Every responsibility that we make is cut, sewn, and printed at a factory that's fair trade certified. This premium we have at the scale that we're doing production with them has a dramatic impact on every single employee in that facility. I think that was the most compelling realization I had when getting into this project, was that the t-shirts are saving 63 gallons of water a piece. When you look at the volume that we do, we're getting into the millions of gallons of water. That's where you really start to see the overall impact on the environment and how meaningful this small decision to change the inputs of a t-shirt can have on the global footprint that we have as a brand and a product.
So that was the responsible t-shirt. We look at one more facet of circularity, which is resale retail. In USA alone, the market size for secondhand clothing is $28 billion, and which is growing at 25% per year because customers can see the value. The prices are 50 to 75% lower than a full price product. And by marketing it and adding tags like rare and vintage, the valuation can go up. Secondhand retail is catching up not only in USA, but also in Japan, in Europe, and various department stores are now setting up divisions to get into this segment. We look at a secondhand store, secondhand mall in Sweden.
This shopping mall in Sweden may look normal, but there's something different about it. Every item here is second-hand. Some products are upcycled, so unwanted things are reinvented as something new, like this lampshade, which is made from worn-out leather jackets.
It's a high-fashion trash shopping mall where you can come and just do sustainable shopping, and Sweden loves it, and the world loves it. Everyone wants to be like us.
The clever thing about this mall in Eskilstuna near Stockholm is its location, right next to the city's recycling centre. So a steady stream of cars is already coming to drop off unwanted household items. A team sorts everything into categories. The mall's shopkeepers can then pick things to resell or upcycle. Maria Larsson runs a popular shop.
So I skipped that. Rituna is the name of the mall. It's completely secondhand. So for this payback time, we need support from brands and from governments and from the supply chain partners. Green Button is a label by the German government. The government is certifying certain products for meeting sustainability standards. Join Life is a movement by Inditex Group, and they are giving this label for products which use certain grade of raw materials and processes which are of environmental excellence. ThreadUp is the world's largest online thrift store in the US. In rental fashion, all these companies are doing excellently well because expensive luxury products like handbags, one doesn't need to really buy and keep for a lifetime. You can buy them, use them, and return them. You can swap them And if you still fall in love, you can still buy them. So the 6 keys to sustainability are to try to make it slow and circular. We have a customer called Filippa K in Sweden. Their shop window doesn't change from September 1st till December 1st. Every month, every week, it is the same. They are standing up for slow fashion, and they are saying, if you come inside for the quality of our products, not for the newness and the change. Automation. Slowly but steadily, automation is coming into the industry, and this is going to help because there will be smaller order quantities possible, so there will be no MOQs, and the process in the factory will be more efficient, there will be less wastage, and this can also promote near-shoring. So automation is going to be one of the pillars. Number 3 is transparency in supply chains, leading to better traceability. One such company is Provenance, which is going to use blockchain technologies to try to create the entire supply chain. Restorative farming, where we try to heal the land, we try to regenerate the topsoil, we try to restore the biodiversity, we improve the water cycle, we support and educate the farmers. Futuristic biotech, where we are going to do a lot of R&D and it's going to scale up. We're already growing leather in the lab. We are making nylon from castor beans. We are trying to create biodegradable polyester, and we're trying to use bacterial and algae-based dyes instead of chemical dyes. In terms of alternate textiles, a lot of R&D is going on. Pinatex is a fabric which is made from the pineapple leaves, and Hugo Boss is already making sneakers out of that. Ferragamo is using orange peel silk, and already a lot of work is going on sour milk fibers. So from waste, you make wealth. We look at one such product called the Forever Sneaker by Everlane. So the Forever sneaker, when it is recycled, 91% of that goes into making equestrian flooring, 9% of that goes into making mats for the house. We look at another option, a concept of recycling for making padding for jackets.
Now, there's more to love about Primaloft fibers than their tiny size and premium performance. We've engineered Primaloft Gold Insulation Eco with fibers made from 55% post-consumer recycled materials. That means drinking bottles that would become landfill waste become high-performance insulation that's warmer, drier, softer, and more compressible for comfort in any condition on any adventure. Primaloft Gold Insulation Eco, the new benchmark in insulation performance with an environmental conscience. Look for.
So fabric and paddings from recycled plastic bottles. In automation, we are now catching up with three-dimensional design. Customers make a simple sketch, not a very elaborate tech pack, and we are able to make 3D prototypes for them, as shown on this. We can also use it for fit samples. This is going to eliminate a lot of physical sample making and couriering. 3D can also be used with such 3D environments, and we can also create runways to present an entire collection as a 3D collection. Coming to transparency, this is Everlane's website, and they are advertising a jacket, and I've highlighted, look at the amount of detail they give you in terms of the recycled materials used and made in Bac Giang, Vietnam. And if you're curious, you click that and it tells you more about the factory. This is traceability 5.0. Everlane also gives a transparent pricing. They break down the price. There's no rocket science in this. They are very transparent, that's all. So the material cost plus hardware plus labor, duties and transport, they come with the true cost of the product, and they tell you what is their multiplier and at what price they are offering it. Several brands like Patagonia and Prana have gone for regenerative organic certification, which is organic plus plus. This is a video on the pineapple fiber. So remember ananas, and they are making substitute leather from pineapple leaves. For scaling and supporting these initiatives, Hong Kong is developing as an important incubation center, and there are organizations like Fashion for Good, Make Fashion Circular, Sustainable Apparel Coalition, who are really supporting startups to scale up on these projects. What is India doing about sustainability? India is come up with a sustainable resolution. So at least it's a good start. Have a look.
It's our absolute privilege to have such diverse stakeholders here at Fashion Week. I think this is the first time we would be hosting 40 retail CEOs and decision makers, the chairman of the CMAI, the Honorable Minister of Textiles, the head of the UN in India, key partners like Reliance Industries, the KVIC chairperson is here. We have the lensing team who are showcasing after this. I think this is a true confluence of what we want to stand for in fashion in the country, which is a melting pot of ideas that bring about transformational change. And today is a major step towards that change with the launch of Shaw, which is the first and the largest sustainable initiative taken by the fashion industry in the country. I also want to thank Lakme, our partners. Lakme Fashion Week works because of them. And I think with this initiative, it's just the start point. But we hope that in the next 5 years, this initiative, which gets launched today, leads to millions and millions of garments in the country turning from non-sustainable resources to sustainable resources. Thank you very much for being here.
We look at a few sustainable brands, and so this concept is already catching on in India. There's Zavi, there's Doodlage, there's Chola, and Fab India continuing to do great work trying to promote ethnic fashion and organic fashion. So to conclude, there is no planet B. So like global warming, fashion toxicity is a clear and present danger. It's not that fast fashion is going to completely die out tomorrow. Over a period, fast but sustainable fashion will develop. Companies like H&M, Zara are fast, but they're also involving themselves and investing in sustainability. So there's going to be fast sustainable and slow sustainable. And this will coexist similar to how petrol and diesel vehicles exist with electric vehicles. But in general, most retailers have commenced the good business journey. Sustainable fashion, after all, is good fashion. So it's going to take a lot of pull and push from the retailers, pull from the consumers, and collaboration with the suppliers. There is going to be nearshoring. So I think that's going to be a threat for countries aspiring to get into the supply chain in Africa. Probably that may not come. There are a lot of companies in the B2B domain doing great work on sustainability. Higg Index, Fairweather Foundation, Sustainable Apparel Coalition, Leather Working Group, Zero Discharge of Hazardous Chemicals, Business Environmental Process Initiative, Leadership in Energy Environmental Design, Ecotex, Global Organic Textile Standards. But the B2C movement has not yet caught on, and post-COVID, I think that consumers will feel, share, believe this movement. They will buy less and wear more. We will also require more advertising spend on sustainable fashion and more influencers to promote this. Very similar to food, we have to educate our children and practice sustainability at home. We all should become curious about everything we use and about its environmental impact. After all, apparel and footwear are touching our skins. In the past, whenever a customer used to negotiate with me, he will say, Venky, the quality of this product is a given. Don't offer me anything cheaper. For that product, taking quality as a given, what is a better price or a better lead time you can give me? Very soon, sustainability will also be a given. So we cannot evade and get away from it. So for your companies, you need to think, will you prepare your sustainability approach through in-house knowledge banks and talent, or hire consultants? You have to make your vision for 2025 now. And in the garment industry, we have to cut down single-use plastics and try to go for compostable packaging. I come back the full circle to the very advertisement. Don't buy this jacket. What did they further go on to say? They said that Patagonia suggests that we should reduce, repair, reuse, recycle, all in all, reimagine. Together, we should reimagine a world where we take only what nature can replace. Thank you very much. I would like to close my presentation and pass the mic to Nitin Gupta.
Thank you, Venky. This is such a great presentation, and thank you for covering all aspects of sustainable fashion. That makes my life much easier. And I'll just talk shortly about what is important for sustainable fashion. I think I come from a design background, and I think that one of the two key things that we can do within the design community and keeping sustainable fashion in mind is through early intervention. And I think there are two key things that we are doing. Number one, I think it is important to design for sustainability, which is one aspect that I will touch upon. And the second thing that we have to do is use greater technology. And there is a there's clearly defined success stories where where technology and fashion have met and have created sustainable solutions, either through the reduction of wastage that the industry causes, or actually being able to reduce other aspects and reduction of carbon emissions or your carbon footprint of the company through various measures. To be honest, sustainability was always one of the main things that industries were talking about, but I think COVID-19 has really pushed industries to think about and to reassess the amount of clothing they are either producing or trying to sell as a business. Of course, you spoke about Patagonia, you spoke about ThreadUp, you spoke about H&M. There are big players who have been in the fast fashion race, and they have really taken a pledge to move a substantial part of their business from conventional to sustainable. H&M, for example, incidentally, is one of our main customers at Arvind. They have pledged that they will be using 100% recycled or sustainably sourced material by 2030. Everything in their product right now, everything that they're selling, which is synthetic, may or may not be sustainable, but by 2030, they have pledged that everything in their store will be used from either recycled or sustainably sourced materials. And that is, I think, a big sign that even fast fashion is taking sustainability very seriously. And a large part of that is also because the consumer is expecting, through the expectation economy, a guilt-free shopping experience, because they are essentially seeing the adverse effects of uncontrolled use of resources by our generation and the boomer generation before them. So they are very concerned, and they're extremely woke, which is a word that they use a lot. They're extremely woke about issues and concerns, particularly to do with the environment. It's interesting that of all the cotton that H&M is using, already none of it is conventional. 80% of what they use is BCI, which is a Better Cotton Initiative, which is a type of agricultural farming which doesn't use the same amount of water or pesticides as conventional cotton. About 18 or 19% of their cotton is actually coming from organic sources, and 0.5 or so comes from recycled material. So about 100% of their cotton is from sustainable sources. And the great part is that they're not using that as a marketing tool. Nowhere when you walk into the store do they write in big words that I am actually using sustainable cotton. It has now become a given that when you buy something from H&M, it is actually coming from good cotton and not bad cotton. Our planet, as you were mentioning, can hardly support the level of consumption of raw materials that we are doing. At this stage, we are supposed to be about 8.5 billion people by the year 2030. And if we don't start taking conscious efforts in making sure that our resources are not badly or overutilized or exploited, will our future generations to come have something to live on? We really need to rethink how we make as well as how we consume our products. And you were talking about the economy moving from production, consumption, and discard. This is what we call as a linear economy. And the need is to move from a linear economy to a circular economy, where at the end of the life cycle of a product, it either gets reused or it gets repaired or it gets recycled. And I think a lot of companies are working in that particular function. I'd like to give you a few figures. Pre-pandemic, fashion industry's overall wastage was predicted to increase by around 62% from 2015 levels, reaching an annual of 148 million tons by 2030. That's just the wastage that's going to come out from fashion. And I think that is a figure that we have to remember and absorb and think about, that is a huge amount of waste. And that is why a lot of other companies have come up, companies like ThreadUp, companies like who are in the in the second-hand sharing economy, as we call it, where they're using. By 2029, the percentage of the second-hand economy is going to be much higher than the fast fashion economy. By 2029, the second-hand economy is going to be about 80 billion, and the fast fashion economy is going to be 43 billion. Currently, it is at 36 billion to 28 billion, vice versa. So that's an interesting figure to keep in mind. And during COVID, a lot more people have moved towards thrift shopping because of financial pressures. A lot of people have lost jobs. People have taken a pay cut. So it's something that is quite heartening. And at the base of all of this, I think that it is important to understand how design can make an intervention. But before that, I touch upon why fast fashion became fast fashion. The entire advent of fast fashion didn't come upon by itself, that people started expecting more. It's just that as technology improved in the garment and textile manufacturing process, the economies of scale came in, the larger players came in, the big ticket retailers came in. There was better economies of scale. And over a large period of time, particularly in the decade from, say, 1995 to 2014, every other good saw a substantial increase at MRP level, at cost level, as well as at the sales point level, due to inflation and many others. Remarkably, the clothing industry saw the lowest inflation levels at retail. For example, in India, from 1995 to 2014, the rate of growth of sales price of all goods were 272%, but clothing grew only at 152%. So, for example, your furniture, your cars, your electronic items, they grew at 272% over a 10-year period. Clothing grew at 152%, which actually, frankly, is not bad. If you look at UK, all goods grew at 49% in that decade. Clothing grew by a negative 52%. The cost of clothing at retail came down 52% in the last 10 years in UK. Similarly, in the US, all goods grew by 55%, whereas clothing decreased. The cost of buying clothing in the US decreased 3%. And I think that is what has really pushed people to start to consume fashion, to change fashion like a leaf. Today I like this, today I don't like it. Ellen MacArthur Foundation is a foundation in the UK that works a lot with sustainability, particularly with circularity. And they said that if we were able to move wasted product, they say that 1 in 4 clothing items is sent to the landfill without even being worn. So 25% of clothing in the UK goes to the landfill without it being worn. And if they were to move that and put that into a recycled or the secondhand economy, that could be a 40 billion pound industry by itself. And so that's one way of looking at it. The second thing that I think is very important is design intervention. As designers, it is a responsibility on ourselves to design for sustainability. And that doesn't just mean using organic cotton or recycled polyester or eco-nile fabric. It is important that we actually design products that last longer. So every part of the design process should help in either no wastage or reduced wastage, or should look at increasing the wearability or the life cycle of the product. And there are a lot of things. For example, Huntsman is a dye company which creates which has created dye stuff which where they have an ever black and an ever white, where if you dye your yarn and you make a fabric with that dye, your whites last longer, they stay white longer, and the blacks don't fade as much. So a regular black shirt would fade in, say, 12 washes or 15 home launders or 20 home launders. Here, this would last for 50 or 40 or 60 home launders based on what temperature that you do. And that's huge, because you need a white shirt for your work, you need a black shirt for going out, and you might change that white shirt every 6 months or a year. But if you can actually increase the life cycle of that white shirt by 2 more years, and you are reducing your consumption and thereby helping in reduction of consumption as well. The second thing that is important is, how do we create product which is low wastage? So there is a big industry that's coming up where we're saying that there is low wastage or no wastage in the garment process. So they are slightly anti-fit, slightly larger in size, so that you don't create any cut waste. At least at an average, 20% of fabric gets wasted as cut panels on the shop floor. When you lay the fabric in layers, again, due to economies of scale, need for fast pace, at an average, 20% of fabric actually is wasted. It goes to the surplus market and finally lands up in the landfill. It is important that designers design with zero wastage, so that no or as minimal wastage as possible. And there are ways and means of going about it. There are a lot of brands that are working now. There are brands like Kuyana and many others in the US and Europe that are actually working, and they've made this as a big feature in the way their garments are designed. The third thing that we have to do is to use technology. And I think the first and the easy way is to use 3D technology. We've seen a lot of companies. I was part of Asmara. We implemented 3D design there, and we saw such a quantum shift in how customers have been engaging with us, both in terms of increasing, stickiness with the customer, that growth of business, but also in the way we've been able to reduce wastage, both in terms of material. Today with 3D, you're able to create an entire garment without actually ever putting scissors on fabric, without actually making a sketch on, cutting a pattern, all of that, and being able to interact with the customer in real time. Whereas in the conventional method, one style, from the time it became a concept, a designer sketched it, to the time it reached the approval stage and the garments were able to ship from the factory, you had to make 20 garments, 20 samples in between to get to that level. And that 20 garments go nowhere. They either sit in our factories, in our offices, or on the client side, and eventually they go into a landfill. So that is another integral part of it. The other thing that it contributes a lot is carbon emission, because you're couriering product. It is actually on a aircraft, that sample traversing the rest of the world. I think our samples if we were able to claim air miles on our samples that went back and forth around the world, I think we would have a lot more air miles on the garments than we collect as people in sales and marketing. So I think that is another very big intervention that we can do. The other thing in technology that's happening, which is very remarkable, is how new companies are working to develop new textiles. I was actually talking to a gentleman who has actually patented a technology. They call it fair bricks, because they're actually using carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and converting it into synthetic yarn. And they are the first, they're essentially the first carbon negative synthetic fiber producer in the world. And that is remarkable, because if you're able to use waste or pollution and convert that into reusable, recyclable material, that is a huge win for us. And their one fabric, it is actually run by a French scientist called Benoit Lee, and two scientists who have started this company. They've just gotten funding from the H&M Foundation, and they're looking at ways to scale this up so that brands like H&M and many others can actually buy it. There's another company called Renew Cell, which essentially has found a way to turn cotton, use cotton and viscose into a biodegradable pulp. And from that, they've been able to create fiber and new yarn, and with that new yarn, new garment. And they say that that is the first truly closed loop yarn and fiber that they've created, because you can keep recycling it and keep reusing it. Of course, there is some amount of value loss, 7%, 8% in the process of recycling, but it still is a lot better than us being able to just recycle or repair clothes for the future. So I think that is another thing that is quite interesting that we're seeing. The third thing that a lot of brands are doing now is using artificial intelligence in the way they are able to now demand forecast. Earlier, it was still very gut feel. It was based on numbers. It was based on Excel sheets. But there are a lot of startup companies. There is edited.com. There is WGSN, which is one of the leaders in fashion forecasting. They have something called InStock. There is a French startup called Heuritech, which is actually, they particularly use in artificial intelligence powered trend forecasting. They have a platform which essentially has an algorithm which teaches and is able to analyze images from Instagram and Weibo, and they can recognize product details and predict product trends. I remember also our presentation from the product director of Zalando, where they had two AIs. One was a design AI and one was a buyer AI or merchant AI, which interacted with each other based on what sales data, the raw data that their website was able to generate. And the buyer and the designer AI could work together to create solutions and options on what could sell better and what could sell faster. So I think that is another key aspect where a lot of retail companies need to find a way to reduce inventory. And there are a lot of companies, especially like us. There's a special project that I'm leading, which is called the Flexible Manufacturing Project, where we are looking to create zero MOQ or very low MOQ, minimum order quantity, at hyper speed, so that you again use technology at design, you use technology in manufacturing, so that you're able to squeeze the cycle time, because that's another big issue. You need to be able to get closer to the market so that you predict better, you make better product which sells more, so that you create less wastage, there is less inventory in stock. So there are a lot of this that is going on. That's my pitch: design for sustainability and use technology as much as possible. Over to you, Venky.
Thank you, Nitin. I pass it on to Sarbajit Ghose. Ghose, you're on mute, please. Sundar, can you help Mr. Ghose? Ghose,
please unmute yourself, sir.
Unmute.
Yeah, ready?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, Venky, MMA, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be part of this discussion. And one big advantage of being part of this discussion is you get to learn so much. Between Venky and I learned so many things and so many new trends which I did not know about it. The second advantage of being the last speaker is most of what you wanted to speak is anyway covered. So, so I'll just use my time to, make some observations, which one definition which I like a lot is meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And basically, you talk about sustainability for human behavior, social, economic, and environmental. People tend to think that it's only about environment or social, but these are the four facets. Now, I'd like to come to the last slide, which Venky showed about, the reimagined plan of Patagonia. And they said, reduce, repair, reuse, recycle. And I go back to one generation before, when I was a growing kid. And, we used to go once a year, and being a Bengali during Durga Puja, and, my parents used to buy cloth of the same design for all the brothers and sisters. Then we used to all go to a tailor, and it used to get stitched. We had a nice pair of shoes, but before we got another one, we would go to a cobbler and get it repaired, do it twice, thrice, have enough nails on them, till, we all agreed in the family that yes, nothing more can be done about this pair of shoes, and therefore we need to get rid of it, And the next point was about reuse. And I mean, I had an elder brother, I was the eldest brother, but my younger brother always used to keep complaining that, 90% of what he got was my hand-me-downs, I used to, and finally, when we got sick of something, or it was really, we wanted to get something new, we always had our domestic help or people who were helping us in the house to help us to, take it and use it, So I seriously feel that, we as a society had the, highest values when it came to sustainability. Whatever Patagonia is talking about today, they may be reimagining it, but we had imagined it probably 2 generations ago. And I think the main difference which is happening today is that we are getting more and more influenced by the West. And whatever bad habits the West are desperately trying to, get rid of, whether it is eating fast food or, fast fashion, we are trying to copy and, do the same thing with a great deal of enthusiasm. We feel that this is the future, and, while we have all these brands talking about, to me, when H&M or some brand talks about, some of the steps they are doing to become more sustainable, I mean, I'm reminded of, a fat American who goes to a McDonald's and then he orders a double cheese, double fry hamburger with a large portion of fries. And of course, just to balance it out, he also asks for a glass of Diet Coke, so just in case, he feels guilty about having too much of fast food, he has a bit of balancing. And sometimes I get an impression that when you look around and when you look at Amazon or Flipkart or all these people, pushing fashion, dropping prices, bringing things new, and at the same time, there are people talking about, sustainability and, the future. I still feel that ultimately the consumer is confused. The consumer knows what sustainability is. The consumer understands the importance of saving the planet. But, there is still that temptation, especially among the young people who think they've, grown up into a modern world, to try new things and try new fashion and do new things. So ultimately, I think the fundamental shift in sustainability in general, and especially for the fashion industry, will have to come from consumers. Consumers will have to stand up and say, look, I will not buy the next t-shirt. I will not buy the next shirt. I have enough. And I don't think that is where we are today, either in the world or in the country. Yes, there are green shoots. People are, thinking in those lines. There's a lot of discussion, lot of talk, lot of technology. But my sense is that on the ground, there's a lot to be done. There's a huge area to be covered. And again, if you look at sustainability from a manufacturing perspective, which is what Venky wanted me to cover, we are actually a global manufacturing group. We are present. We make shirts, t-shirts, sweaters. We are present in multiple countries: India, Bangladesh, Mauritius, Madagascar. And we are facing a lot of pressure from our customers, to be more sustainable, in our products, in our practices, and so on. But again, if you look at the history, I mean, this may seem to be a very extreme view, but a lot of things was pushed by the developed world to the developing world. Tanneries were the most unsustainable business. It was, chrome tanning created a huge amount of environmental damage. And those were the first things which moved from Europe and America into countries like India and other developing countries. Ambur and that belt, when you go from Bangalore to Chennai, you pass through the belt. That area has been permanently damaged. The base water is full of chromium. There are huge cases of people, who are falling sick, who have cancer. And the root cause is that the huge amount of tanning activity which is happening there. It's not that the manufacturers there have not become conscious of it. They have become conscious. Customers have become conscious. There is a lot of work being done so that, people are more cognizant of the environmental harms. But fundamentally, the business is there. People are still buying shoes. There is demand for leather. And there is a huge pressure on prices. So there is this complete balancing which a manufacturer is always doing in trying to offer more sustainable products, either through design or through manufacturing, versus the customers wanting, better prices, better service, so that they can in turn satisfy the end consumer. One of the things which is also happening, one of the largest success stories in India is Tirupur. Tirupur is one of the largest t-shirt manufacturing hubs, knitwear in the world. And this is one of the industries where we have been very competitive, in fact, even more competitive than countries like Bangladesh and so on. But a few years ago, the Supreme Court had to actually close down most of the units because they were polluting and they were creating so much damage to the atmosphere and to the groundwater that, they had to ban these units, and they were being forced to set up proper rivers. And because of which, there is a much better balance which has been struck between, taking care of the requirements of the customers and, taking care of the environment and taking care of the labor who come from, the poor states of UP and Jharkhand, all the way to Tamil Nadu to make a living. And often again, because of this huge pressure from customers for prices and, to get better value to be passed on to their consumers in the West, there's a lot of exploitation, and some of it is corrected, but there's a lot of it which remains hidden and continues. And again, when we talk about sustainability as global manufacturers, we have a huge demand, as I told you, from customers, to be transparent, to achieve better standards in, social, environmental, human practices, but again, as Venky said, there's not much of opportunities to improve on prices. People talk about partnerships, value chain, and so on. And, some of the, we realize that many of these things sound very good on paper. The presentations are wonderful. The videos are great. But, when we had the recent, during this pandemic, the true strength of the partnerships and the relationships came to the fore. Most manufacturers got letters and emails from their customers and saying that, look, we are strategic partners. We have worked together, blah, blah, blah. We are brothers, and, we are so close. However, because of the pandemic, we have to cancel your orders. We have to close your factories. Okay. Some of us are getting bankrupt, and we are passing on most of the difficulties onto you. And there has been huge, human problems because of factories closing down, because of owners not being able to supply, because of they're having huge stocks, and there's been chaos, and then when you think and say that, are we talking about double standards? On one hand, when things are good, one talks about partnerships, environmental concerns, social concerns, sustainability. But the moment, the things don't look that great, the first thing which happens is all these things seem to break down. And ultimately, they could be very little concern for that last mile, for that worker who's, we've seen all these pictures of migrant laborers, walking back from various cities to, back to their villages. Where is sustainability there? Where is the human social concerns? I realize that sometimes at the first instance, when there's a crisis, people tend to revert back to, their old habits, and they try to protect their own interests. And, the whole thought of one planet and one, world, and that we are all together to make the planet better for the future seem to get forgotten. Again, I personally feel that some of the concerns which the developed world has about sustainability. Sorry, I'm getting some disturbance. They basically talk about global warming, the fact that, CO2 gas emissions are increasing, and, so on. There are concerns. But I think we in our country, have more fundamental concerns. The fact that our agricultural labor are committing suicide, there's no sustainable livelihoods left for them. The fact that they are being forced to come to cities which do not have the infrastructure to bear the burden. And, we talk about all this, but do we also remember the fact that water, cities like Bangalore are coming to a point where they will probably run out of water, and the citizens will not know what to do. And even while this is being talked about, we talked about our lakes, where industries are still, throwing pollutants, and we have stories about frotting lakes, and we have stories about dead fishes coming on the surface. So I guess, to me, there is a huge gap between what we say and what we do. Whether as a consumer, when we go and buy a shirt, whether as a producer, whether as a customer, as an industrial customer, with what we expect. And I think unless we come to terms with this subject and really, bring a certain level of honesty in this entire discourse, I think we will continue to be talking and there'll be a lot of conflict, but not much of progress. So on this very despondent note, and hopefully a little bit of, thoughts which I can leave to you, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Ghosh. You brought in the human side of fashion, and that should not be forgotten in all the talk about R&D and product development. And many customers talk one thing and do another, and they've not been truly partnering us. So I agree, and we'll have to really, combat this together. But at the same time, it's also each man for himself. It starts with every one of us, and then we'll have to take some tough questions or stands with customers and brands as well. Mr. Balraman, we'd like to take your feedback, please.
Actually, you have made us all think. There is consciousness. There are attempts to do something about it, but the job is massive and it requires total societal cooperation. And many governments are not even conscious of this. I mean, there is no the recognition that this is an issue that needs to be tackled and that can be positively tackled. There is no understanding of this. And our education, technical education, also needs to include this. When people are taught chemical engineering, about dyes, about textile technology, there needs to be a lot of focus on this. I do not see that happening yet. Because unless it starts at the level of schools and colleges, it is not going to happen tomorrow. I mean, so all of us have a huge job to do. And I think we will get a lot if you invite questions and comments from the audience, because I see a number of people in the audience are from this industry. So it might be a good idea to listen to them.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Group Captain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Balraman. I think we have around 1,200 viewers watching this program live from various social media portals. Keeping in mind the long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's a very good number. I know I was very worried. Long weekend is always the casualties, the programs which we do in between. But this shows the interest what the people have shown on this particular program. Let me go over to the question which has come from one of the YouTube viewer, Mr. Nitin. He says, are ethically produced clothes a privilege for the wealthy? Should people with limited disposable income really be expected to pay more for clothes just to avoid buying cheap stuff that's bad for the planet? What's your views on this?
Right. Ethically and sustainably made clothes are not for any elite. All garments over a period of time and footwear will have to come into safe wear. So it's not that a poorer person can take something toxic. So it is for everybody, but at the same time, it has to, with scale, become affordable, and it has to become a way of life, the part of the manufacturing process. Yeah, Nitin?
Yes, Mr. Nitin.
So actually, it is a great question, and I think that, of course, sustainable fashion does come with a small price tag attached to the fact that there are certain requirements from a certification standpoint to ensure that there is real traceability, also that it is truly sustainable, and that costs money. I think the expectation that brands have is that suppliers should be able to absorb the difference in that cost. But there is growing awareness within the consumers that when you are talking about sustainable fashion, it does cost a little more in the current scenario. But if you look at different organizations like Fashion for Good and the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, they've been working a lot, and they're trying to make sustainable practices as the main operating model in the entire industry. And for comparison, I'll say that 20 years ago, when organic cotton first started showing, it's come down to barely 2% or 2.5%. And the only reason why that has happened is because organic cotton is now becoming the way of life, or BCI cotton is becoming the way of life, without it actually adding pressure at margin, both from a manufacturer or from an agricultural standpoint, but also through a end-to-end process standpoint. So once it becomes more and more people adopt or demand sustainability, the prices will automatically come down, or the prices will reset to a point where there is equitability along the value chain and along the supply chain.
Thank you, Nitin. Group Captain.
Yeah, it's a question from Ms. Christina. She is a wonderful presentation. And do you think that in recent times, with the people flocking to buy masks at a massive rate, and literally all market players manufacturing masks on a larger scale, that the mask manufacturing become the primary contributor to the fashion industry? Your views on that, sir?
Yeah, a number of brands have also added mask as one other accessory which they are also selling. But really, over a period, we've seen that the scale of mask manufacturing has gone up plentyfold, and the prices have really dropped. Literally, masks are available for free, so one should really be discerning. There's no need to, I think, spend too much on masks. It's available at a very, very affordable cost now.
Another question is thrifting gaining popularity in India? Do people really accept adapting to purchasing used clothes? How can you change the mindset?
Yeah, very good question. I've myself been tormenting on this point because of our culture, our society. How acceptable is second-hand sale going to be? I'm not able to predict. I do see some challenges. I've done my own short surveys, and people said, "Oh, it's not lucky to buy a product used by somebody to my home." So there are many such fears and concerns. The Nordic countries and Japan, they've been much more open about it to embrace secondhand. But at least we can try to reuse, even if we don't resell. So resell will be the longest to get adopted in India.
There's also supplementary. I would like to add, Mr. Nitin. Otherwise, there's one supplementary is also asked. Are these companies in India who collect discarded clothes and bring them back to life? There's another question. Yes. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Nitin?
Yeah, so I think that it is more of a generational shift. The millennial and the centennial generation Z, as we call them, are moving towards sharing economy, because that is actually more of a conceptual change. It's not so much as the newer generation is a lot more I think thoughtful about how they're using clothes, and when they see a model that is viable for them, because the difference is that my generation and the generation that came before me, technology never competed with our purse strings, with the money that was in our purse. It was always clothing. It was always maybe FMCG. Whereas now the newer generation, the purse, the money, the dollars or the rupee in your wallet is competing for many things. It is competing for Netflix subscription. It is competing for a new phone. It is competing for the newest, PS3 or PS4, whichever PS is right now in the market, the game. So I think that generation has a limited amount of money that they want to experience a lot more. And a lot of them are shifting towards thrift shopping, secondhand shopping. A lot of friends a group of friends will buy similar things and exchange over a period of time. So it is gaining popularity in the younger generation. I think it's a different question for the older generation.
Group Captain, I have one rejoinder. In Kandla, in Gujarat, there is one of India's biggest recycling projects where they are collecting and bringing recycled clothes, and then they have a massive sorting project, because sorting is the biggest part of this. And then they are sending it for recycling, all cottons together, all polyesters together. So that's a good step in the right direction. And there are some companies, more NGOs really, which are collecting used clothing like Ghose, and then they're trying to give a second life, at least to use it for sanitary napkins and a few other projects.
Thank you, sir. We've got a couple of more minutes. We'll try and add as many questions as possible. So the question which has come from Sarbajit from Mumbai, what do you want to know when the fast fashion is based on constant and rapid mass production? Can the increased use of renewable energy and recycled materials really make a difference to the environmental impact of oversupply? Not to mention the ethical, social dimensions of low-cost manufacturing. Your views?
Fast fashion, if it continues the way it is doing, it is going to continue doing harm. So it has to change. And my prescription, I think in the future, what is going to happen is the factory first costs will go up. The customers will be bound to give a fair upcharge for using a sustainable material or a process. Thereby, they will also upcharge their retail price a little bit. But therefore, the overall quantity of garments purchased and produced will come down. That is the kind of equilibrium I'm imagining. If anybody else has an opinion.
Here's the question, chat box you all must also seen from Mr. Aditya from ICA Textiles, Salem. He says, on speaking of sustainability, is it a responsibility of the fashion brand or is it responsibility of the consumer? There's a question. He also got another question. By buying only organic or recycled fashion, can we say that we are more responsible? What is the idea that fashion brands must recommend us to be more sustainable?
Yeah. If you go in for, basically, we all have to get into that habit over a period to start looking at the care label inside the garments and try to see what is written about the content and the composition of the fabric. It is even mentioned there, whether it is recycled, and to use organic cotton garment or to use a recycled polyester garment. Yes, you are doing your small bit. Every bit matters. So it's a great step. So I think, the consumer, it is going to be both consumer pull and a retailer push.
You would like to add anything more?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to add something. I think that the responsibility lies with both, and I don't think one is less than the other. Of course, if consumers adopt more sustainable clothing, the brands will automatically supply what the demand is. So it's a demand supply question. But most importantly, I think that what Venky was saying about looking at what's on the wash care, looking at what the content is made from, and consciously choosing materials that are going to have a low impact on waste, low impact on misuse of resources. That is automatically a better product to go after. But at even the most basic level as consumers, we can make changes in the way we take care of our clothes. If the wash care, most of the wash care labels will say machine wash at 30 degrees or machine wash at 40 degrees. In reality, you don't need to wash it at any heat. You can wash it at cold, at cold water, on a cold water level. And that will give you the same amount of cleanliness, because we are not actually jumping in the mud and getting stains or oil or anything on our clothing on a day-to-day basis. By making certain small changes like this in the way we take care of our clothing, we will, as consumers, have a direct impact in the reduction of any pollution that we are causing, whether that's microplastic, whether that's fiber degeneration when you're washing, or the unnecessary use of energy. So every time you wash something at 30 degrees, the washing machine uses more energy than if you were to wash cold. So there are simple things that consumers can do without actually consciously having to pay more to buy something more sustainable.
The interesting question from Mr. Amit Kumar Pandey. He says, what could be the top 3 decision drivers for consumer to buy recycled clothes other than the price tag? We also want to know, do you think the government policy intervention specifically targeted towards textile and apparel industry, India can make an impact on policy measures? Could be more such areas like tax exemptions, supporting automation under TUFS, technology upgradation funding schemes, etc. Possibly recycled in India could be a sub-element under the Make in India initiative and may become the net contribution to GDP in the long term. This is a question from Amit Kumar Pandey. Your views on this?
In consumer surveys done...
Very, very good point. Yeah.
Yeah. In consumer surveys done, because of Generation Z and the millennial customers, 68% of them are willing to pay a little bit more to buy a sustainable product. So the awareness and the enthusiasm is increasing and it's positive. So the supply side also has to give it to them in the right quality and durability. And yes, government policies will definitely help, and all these startups need encouragement and government support. Anybody else wants to add?
The only point I would do is that I don't think we should become the recycle hub of the world, because we don't want junk coming into our country and everything will be shipped back from developed countries, like what's happening in the Philippines and Indonesia and Thailand and other countries, where trash is coming from the West and the expectation to recycle that trash is on that country. I don't think that is what we should aim to do. What we should aim to be is a recycle hub of our own country. Whatever is the waste that is coming from our own economy, being able to recycle it. And there are many brands that are doing it. There are brands like Refash, there is Doodlage. There are a lot of NGOs that are working in that field. So there is already good work happening. It's just that we need more like-minded people to come and support those initiatives, but also buy. The more consumerism increases in those products, the more focus of the government as well as NGOs will be in creating sustainable practices and recyclable practices.
Thank you. 2 last questions, sir. We'll close it, then we'll hand it over to the chairman. Mr. Alex wants to know, he says that the fast fashion and second-hand clothing, how many washes does the fast fashion clothing really last? Secondly, on second-hand clothing, assumes clothing lost, how will it be achieved? Then second last question is, this is a question which has come from, again, Mr. Agra from Nitin, your namesake. How young people are shaping the future of sustainable fashion? How can we build futuristic business that draw inspiration from that of history?
I think the last question I answered about those market surveys where millennials are willing to pay more. Can you quickly repeat the first question?
First question is the question on the fast fashion and second-hand clothing. How many washes does a fast fashion clothing last actually?
Okay, it's not that all fast fashion is crap fashion. That's not true. Fast fashion clients also take care of certain standards in the materials and the testing and the processes. So they usually have a good shelf life and a rewash cycle life. Second-hand clothing, again, those companies which actually go into resale fashion will evaluate those garments, and they will also put certain disclaimers, but they will ensure that they are not just passing on completely unfit for use garments.
Maybe the question which has come from Bangladesh, Mithun, maybe I'll take this as the last question, and it's from Asmara, Bangladesh, and he says, how green are your products and what is your carbon footprints? Do you have alternative energy source such as wind and solar? How are you engaging your employees in the sustainability efforts? What percentage of your capital expenditure are related to sustainability?
Very good. All relevant questions to be asked from the vendors and the suppliers. But like Mr. Sarbajit Ghose said, that this is something where we have to be together. The retailer has to encourage these investments and efforts made by the suppliers, and they should reward them in terms of giving that fair upcharge for handling their workers well, for handling their factories well, for attaining green standards in the factory. So we have to really, work together with the right customers to make this functional.
Thank you so much. We have come to end because paucity of time. I'm unable to take. There are so many questions that come from Facebook and YouTube, but I have to leave it because we can't make the Bangalore people unhappy. They have to get logged into the IPL. Before I request Mr. Balraman to give the closing comments on behalf of MMA, on behalf of all the members and on behalf of the chairman, we would like to present it as a token of our appreciation because during COVID time, we thought it's very appropriate to present you a couple of hundreds of masks on your behalf to the needy people. May have the yes, this is what we would like to present to 300 masks. This we go around to the people who are around, who are in need. We really tell them to use a mask, and also our people go to the work with number of NGOs to present them at various places. Thank you for accepting everything. Now I'll request Mr. Balraman to please give closing comments. In the meanwhile, we also strongly believe your feedback is very important to us. Do share your feedback to us, which will be coming on the screen. Over to you, Mr. Balraman.
Yes. Actually, we need to carry this further. I would like the three of you to help MMA do something more concrete about this. We could probably have a full day seminar, a full day webinar, let me say, webinar or seminar, depending on what COVID gives the opportunity to us. You see, we should involve pollution control boards because I am aware that as far as the leather industry that Sarbajit Ghose mentioned is concerned, they are doing a lot about treating the effluent water and recycling it. I mean, there is a lot more to do. I mean, we understand that they are trying, but there is more work to be done. So if we involve the pollution control boards, recycling, reuse should become a part of pollution control. I'm not sure it is there yet. I mean, they are only talking about effluent treatment. Okay, whether it is a gaseous effluent or a liquid effluent or solid effluent. They are talking about how to treat that. But they should talk about minimizing such effluent. They should talk about reusing, recycling. And, there is a lot of scope for doing that in our Pollution Control Act, pollution control legislation, pollution control training. Okay. We should also involve educators in this because educators can definitely look at how to educate the engineers, technologists coming out of our colleges in this field, emerging field. What else can we do? If you guys have any other suggestion, we'd be very happy. But I'm sure, please interact with Group Captain. He will give you a chance for one full day webinar.
Yes, I think COVID will pass on. We have a state-of-art auditorium in Chennai. We'll be more than happy to host this even full day seminar where we'll bring in the best of the people. We'll plan it sometime in maybe January or December, keeping in mind.
We can even form a green council. You see, a lot of people are interested in green council, but it should go beyond great interest in greening the world. I mean, a lot of people have great interest in greening the world, but what are the concrete actions? We need to spell them out, and we need to see how to keep them.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Nitin Gupta. Thank you, Mr. Ghose, and thank you, Venky. Very well done. Very well done.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Balraman. Thank you all the viewers watching program live, and thank you for your feedback and also sharing your input, which is very, very valuable to us. Keep watching, and we let you go so that you start watching your IPL or whatever other interest this evening. But all this recording will be available to you. We'll share with you. If any of your friends missed it, please do share with them, and it's available on website. All the recordings will be available. And if you have any question, do share with us. We'll pass it on to the speakers and the distinguished special invitees who will be more than happy to address your and respond to your question. Thank you so much, and stay safe, stay healthy till we meet again. Bye-bye and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Venky.